Thank you for tuning in to Koppen with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Davidson Boswell. Davidson Boswell, how the hell are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. Your intro has like the CO word in it like 4 times.
Does it?
Like Koppen, you know what I mean?
That's
it's like a tongue twister.
Yeah, that's why I'm messing it up, and I want to let people know why it's called Koppen with Comic, because I'm Brian Koppen. I'm here with a comic, and that's how it's supposed to get. And also, Koppen has a couple meetings. You know, people are like, "Oh, I'm copping drugs. I'm copping whatever."
Oh, that's true.
It's spelled different. And
that's what I call it when I steal people's jokes.
Dude, and yeah, I was like, that's what we're kind of doing here. I'm totally copping these people's jokes. I'm gonna pass it off as my own. Like your face and your name are going to disappear from the YouTube. It's just going to be me, you know, lip syncing
so
your
that'll
jokes
be you
for
bombing
you.
on YouTube.
Oh, that's great. So today we are going to talk about first of all, what can you plug right now? What do you have coming up that people should see when they want to see your comedy live?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm doing this is in Long Island City, but I'm doing a week at the Creek in the Cave with another funny comic named Amber Rollo.
Okay.
And we're doing 30-minute sets every day for a week straight, starting January 26th through February 2nd.
Well, that's pretty big. That's pretty big time, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm worried about like who's going to come to a Monday show at 7, but by the time it's like Friday or Saturday, I feel like I'll have really honed my half hour and really know what I want to talk about, and then hopefully take that out on the road and, you know, earn a couple shekels.
And then so how big of a room is it? Because by the end, you really will have needed to hone your craft. Isn't the Creek is pretty large?
Yeah, it is pretty big.
I
would say it tops out around like 50 or 60, and then, you know, a good crowd would be like 20. I've done shows there for 4 people. I've done shows there for, you know, 70. It's very like hit or miss. I feel like, you know, if it's raining, people are less. But sometimes the shows there are funny because it's like just a confused Swedish couple that like politely listens, and then like halfway through your set, you're like, wait a minute, do you understand anything? Any of the references I'm making right now? They're like, no.
we didn't understand what you just said. We don't understand English.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, I think seeing comedy in New York is very novel. Like, tourists that come here want to, you know what I mean?
That's cool. That's cool that's a thing.
It is.
Because otherwise it'd be even more difficult to get people to your show.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of venues, a lot of great comics out there, right?
And very true. And there's, like, so many, you know, you could see people that have been on television every night if you wanted to, you know what I mean? So it's flattering that anybody would come out, but it's just funny when you like make this all like screeching realization that everything you've been saying has just been, you know, shouting into a well, basically.
But even by the time these people get back to Sweden, you will be on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You and Amber Rollo. Now, what kind of comedy does she do, and how do you compare it to your own?
Okay, so she had an interesting thing happen to her where about 2 months ago, her and this other comedian, Kelly Bachman, were at a show, and Harvey Weinstein was in the audience.
Oh, is it that? It's that one.
Yeah, that's them. So,
oh my Lord, you're on a big show then.
Yeah,
everybody's going to come cover that.
Yeah, I think so. And like a lot of people are very interested to see what they have to talk about. So their stuff is more autobiographical and talking about, you know, like touchy subjects like, you know, like rape and consent and things like that. So it's good to have a lot of time to talk about something like that. But I am worried about like following that, you know what I mean? Like, anyway.
Have you had to tweak your stuff?
Well, that's going to be interesting because I have not followed it yet. So I'm wondering if... you know, how it's going to go, because I'm sure the mood in the room is going to be very supportive, but it might be a little bit serious, you know what I mean? Because I think it's like, her stuff is more storytelling, I would say, whereas mine is a bit more observational, and it is about my life, but I try and like keep it light, you know what I mean? And whereas she's trying to like actually push the culture forward, I'm just trying to, you know, be as funny as I can. Not that she's not funny, but her stuff is so like autobiographical and like honestly very 2019, 2020. Like people are gonna want to come out and see that.
Yeah, it's not really making light. It's more here's some serious shit that happened. Let's talk about why this, you know, even needs to be discussed on stage.
Totally, yeah.
Because you know if it is at the cutting edge, but a comic can dance on the cutting edge, or the comic can just slice themselves, up the legs, right?
Fall off. Yeah. But she's like, and it's been I run a show with her called Stoked. Check it out.
And where's that?
Yep. That is at Mad Tropical. It's a tropical bar, which is hilarious in Bushwick, which is a hilarious attend in the middle of January. You come in and it's like, I would like a daiquiri, please.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you can take off your winter coat and just have coconut shells on under it, and you can feel at home.
Necklace.
Yeah, and I bet you a lot of people want to do that too.
That is true.
Right.
Yeah, it's
and that's a nice atmosphere for laughter too.
Totally.
Yeah, because they're in the mood for it. Now, kind of going back to this whole thing, and this really plays on, if you've taken stories from your life and you have a background kind of as, with a Christian upbringing, and so do I. So let's kind of talk about how that, and also, the whole Christianity thing about sex before marriage and how that can work into consent. Because I actually have a story at the overlap, the Venn diagram overlap of, Christianity, virginity, consent.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a second. Just, you are just only going with Me Too comics, let me tell you. But just, what's your Christian upbringing and how has it informed your comedy? And are you still Christian, or are you just have you totally turned your back on it? Because there's some people out there who are like, some comics out there have been like, I always used to be Christian and I think it's fucking stupid.
Well, okay, so
which isn't very funny, so they shouldn't be saying that at all. So you find some. What's your belief system now, and how was it? How does it interplay with this stuff in the past?
Okay, so I'll start out by saying I grew up in I guess I grew up in the era of the megachurch. So there was rock and Christianity meeting, which goes together like milk and orange juice. It's very bad, but
it's cool though. You're not too ashamed to tell your friends you go to church, or that they can come with you to an overnight gathering at the church if it's a mega church, because those things are like huge, basketball courts and stuff where you can play all night long. Right?
So you know exactly. So they tried to make it more. I think it was just this attempt to make it less rigid.
Yeah.
And, a new generation is growing up with video games and, MTV, so let's get them into an airplane hangar with, a Bob Marley poster and see if they'll still like Jesus, what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I grew up with, and, that coincided with everybody thinks they're, smart when they're 16, when really they know nothing. But yeah, right. It made me a militant atheist because I didn't like it so much. And I would say I'm thinking more about spirituality now, and thinking about if I am a Christian, or I'm really not sure. I would qualify myself as an agnostic right now. I'm not arrogant enough to say I know what's going on.
Yeah, because once you discard everything you believed before, some people never take that next step, which is, what do I believe now?
Exactly. Right. Yeah, and nihilism is this is a hard place. New York is very unforgiving, and if you are going around believing in nothing, you know what I mean, then it's going to be lonely. I think, ultimately.
Right.
So if I ever came back to Christianity, I think I would do it on my own terms. I would want to find a church that actually resonates with me, because this place did not. It seemed very commercial. It seemed like they were trying to expand like a business. By the end of it, they had 5 locations. The pastor drove a Corvette.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
Because you're like, where is it? Yeah, I really dislike that when you'd be having a sermon and it'd be going fine, and then they bring up the finance director talking about how they're going to expand the church.
Totally.
Or the Catholic Church, where you see all these big beautiful buildings, and then you hear about the big beautiful payoffs that are to these people who shouldn't be. So why are you kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth? Big money church, and why does the guy have a Corvette?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and and it's that gospel of wealth thing, the Joel Osteen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's selling out Yankee Stadium in May, so and maybe I'll plug that too. Come to Joel Osteen's. But yeah, so that's and then it informs my sex and virginity and stuff like that, because I was so, and that's what I talk about in comedy, is how it fucked up my mind so much to be purity and stuff like that, and keeping things. And my first girlfriend was even more religious than me, so sex, it always felt like I was doing something wrong.
Right. So
a lot of what my comedy is talking about how, and I know it's a little bit hacky, but I was legitimately bad at sex because I had nothing to go on except for, this is wrong, this should be rushed, we should do this.
Yeah, get it over quickly, right?
Yeah. And
without any foreplay.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And so, and then, I talk about, the first time I ever had sex with my girlfriend, we both cried afterwards, which is such a, but it's such a
it wasn't crying tears of joy.
No, it was we're going to burn in hell.
No.
So it's very, but I'm glad I went through that, because if I ever have kids, I'll know to not do that to them. You know what I mean?
My mom's favorite saying was, no sex before marriage no ifs, ands, or buts, especially the butts. Like she actually got a little bit hipper. She tagged that on later on when we were old enough. But yeah, that was there was there was girls who wanted to have sex, and I actually was like, nah, I can't. I'm saving myself for marriage. And then when it finally happened, I was with this older person, and I was this older girl, and I was like 17 and 5'6", meaning it like she was waiting like we were dating, and then she waited for me to turn to 18.
Wow.
And then I was poking around down there just because you poke around, and I did it safely because I was like because this is just kind of what we did. She didn't want to have sex with me because I was too young. It would have been statutory.
Dry humping.
Yeah, yes. Well, I mean, we did everything except for that, and that's why I was poking around with the condom on. And all of a sudden, I got to the opening, and it's tough for any guy to feel anything down there when you have a condom on. And she goes, so I was at the opening, but I wasn't fucking her yet. And she goes, you stick it in, or I'll stick it in myself.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, that's a case study in whether or not that's consent. Like, you can't have consent under duress or coercion. And so if somebody can't, and so like, I went through law school. I'm a retired lawyer now. And so, you know these things about consent and coercion and duress and what's really not consent, and that's why statutory is the way it is, because you can't consent if you're a child, really. And in the law, all children can't consent. But it's whether or not the person can make through on the threat. Yeah. And I was like, well, could she have, my dick is right there in her pretty much at the opening, at the dip. Could she have pushed? The
opening is a fun name for vagina.
At the opening, Davidson Boswell's hosting a new show at the opening. But I was talking to a girl, and she's like, she could have just moved her hips, and you would have been in her in a second. I'm just like, well, then that means that she can make good on that threat. So it was not really consent, because the consent was under duress or whatever. And so it's like, me too. Me too. But really, it's so funny because
gonna give a shit about your Me Too story.
But I think one other time, I think we were talking to some girl, me and the guy, and he had gotten he had sex with when he was young with a professor, and that was also kind of statutory. So me and him had like these Me Too stories where it's like we were totally happy to have sex, and the girl did not feel comfortable talking about hers, and so we were just like, me too. It's just so funny, but it's rare in which a rare situation is like that, and especially because she probably had her own Me Too story.
Yes,
but she didn't want to talk about it in front of two just gleeful men talking about their shitty Me Too experiences.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if it's as psychologically damaging as probably hers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you're just totally jumping for joy that you just had sex. It's probably not a Me Too thing that's worthy of anything, right?
And I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything like that, so I have no idea. But I think the expectations on young men and young women are completely different, and we want to have sex as quickly as possible. And with women, I think there's an unfair expectation that they should save themselves as long as possible or something like that. Yeah, so maybe that ties back into religion, but I'm not sure.
And so now, like, your kind of outlook on sex and your material on sex and stuff is that, are you trying to kind of have a healthy mental approach to sex now? And what is that approach?
Yes. So,
all the girls are taking notes right now. What is Davidson Boswell's approach towards sex?
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is, it's so pent up that once I started having sex, I probably had too much. You know what I mean? Because moving to New York was like, so now I have a girlfriend and things are more like stable and stuff like that. But yeah, I try and just like view it as like, this is good for your mental health to have sex. This is like not something to be ashamed of. There's a lot of hypocrisy, involved in practicing abstinence, because the people that are practicing it often failed. You know what I mean? Too. Right. So, it doesn't. Religion no longer factors into the equation at all, but it did for the first maybe 2 years that I was having sex, and then I kind of took a hard break. And of course, it coincided with college and taking, philosophy 101 and stuff like that. But I was reading Sartre in the bed. No, but I was like I think it's just any dude in his late 20s. Their approach to sex is like, consent is important, but it also like it's just fun and carefree. You know what I mean?
And is it like so the whole time with sex, it's like there's a lot of consequences in my opinion. Some of them are like not just the religious ones, if there are any, I don't know, but just relationships, babies, disease, etc. Most chief among them is kind of relationships or whatever. You fall into a relationship pretty easily, or at least I do. Yes. And so what do you think as far as kind of casual sex and whether, how open you should be about your sex being? Like, what are the expectations with regard to how casual sex is, and should both parties be more open about it? And I guess that's facilitated via Tinder and stuff like that. Are you guys more open about it on there? I don't know. When you plowed through New York City, I don't know if you're on an app or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's how originally, I did approach it. Was just like, this is something that is just fun and meaningless, but I noticed.
Did the partners know that?
I think Tinder comes with, and maybe this is unfair of me to say, but I think Tinder comes with the assumption that it's kind of carefree and stuff like that. But then you dole out a ghosting, and then you receive one, and you are made keenly aware of how hurtful that is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I have in the past maybe 2 years had consecutive long-term relationships, I would say, and that has brought me more edification, whether it be like spiritual or just like it feels healthier. You know what I mean? So my attitude toward casual sex is I don't judge it, but I do feel spent after it happens. I feel like I just kind of you're like the day after hungover because there's probably drinking involved, and you're also just like, you feel like, okay, that was fun, but who am I? You know, I just don't want to have these deep conversations with myself about like every time I do that. And I think people that are wired differently don't have to feel that way. You know, like it sounds like you
psychopath. So I'm the other way. So now it's like, because my attitude on casual sex is like I just don't like, because it's so consequential for me, I avoid it like the plague, and so I start judging people whose casual sex encounters just start ringing up. Do you kind of keep track of other people's numbers? Like, do you judge people who just go bone everything inside? Like, I'm more talking about girls you're about to get in a relationship with. Like, if they've shared their number with you. I know the pussy ain't like a penis counter, and there's no real, as long as it was safe and stuff like that. But it's just like, because the number can get pretty high, especially if you're older like I am, and the girls you're dating are older, like their number. Even if they were totally prudish for most, or like, 1 or 2 sexual partners a year, if they're 40 and they've been boning since they were 20.
Yeah, that's 80.
Yeah, that's a lot of dudes.
Yeah.
And so, like, what do you think, like, a healthy outlook on that should be, like, judging people who do too much casual sex?
Well, my frustratingly enough, what I like, my super ego, the way I think I should feel about it is it doesn't matter at all because it's their bodies and stuff like that.
Oh, sure, right.
But I do notice that like when girlfriends in the past have told me that, it feels like a method of creating distance. Like, I don't know why you would tell somebody that you're being intimate with that you've had tons of sexual partners. I guess it's fine, but if I don't ask, then why are you just bringing it up? You know what I mean? And like, I don't feel like I would do that. And there's just this part of me that I don't like where I get like jealous. I don't think I'm disgusted, but I think I'm just like jealous of it.
Yeah. Why is that? And why should it be like that? And also, like, why should we presume that that person was disclosing their number to create distance if there's no judgment to having a high number?
I know.
So I'm trying to get over the judgment, but kind of why would we get jealous over the not 59 penises before?
I have...
Because they probably were shit. They probably were shit dicks. I mean, it's not like anybody got, good dicking every 59 of those people.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think... I guess the best way to look at it is if they're staying with you and they've had sex with a lot of people, that means that you must be doing something right. You know what I mean?
But you're doing all the other stuff right, the stuff that's so labor intensive, while somebody else waltzed in with their 59th dick and just hit that.
Yeah.
And shouldn't you be more like, well, dude, I mean, you're putting all these restrictions on me, restrictions you might have learned over time, or I'm getting the ultimate prize, we'll be able to get married and have kids.
Yeah.
But why weren't you putting the restrictions on those other 59 dudes?
Yeah, well, and I think you have to look at it like that person is older and wiser now, and eventually, because that's exactly what happened to me in my lower 20s and mid 20s. I was, just kind of throwing it out there and being a whore, for lack of a better word. And I'm kind of thankful that I did it in a weird way, because I'm like, okay, you need to know, you know what I mean, how that makes you feel and what that is like. Because the alternative and the way I hear, because really religious people get married at like 19 and then divorced at 23, and and that fucks up their sexuality in a more profound way, I feel like, because then they're like, I gotta get out there. I gotta get out there, but I don't know what I'm doing. So you're like self-conscious. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I had a microcosm of that with my first girlfriend was incredibly withholding. She intimacy was just this secretive thing. So I think what happened was I exploded out of the gate after that, and then so I got to learn why one thing made me feel shitty, and then another, and now I'm trying to like
treasure the happy medium.
It, you know what I mean? And so treasure the happy medium. Okay. But to answer your question, man, it's got to be something like primal about like is something shitty about like territory or like you know what I mean?
59 monkeys just came on my territory, and to be the 60th one, I don't feel good about that.
No, exactly. And it's like that conquering thing that you should be like planting your flag on the moon. I know that's very objectifying to say, but
sure.
it's like, but it's
but if we're cognizant of that, then we can kind of be like, okay, it's just primitive. Mm-hmm. It's just this kind of natural instinct I have. I just have to know that, realize it's primitive for a reason. So let me get the fuck over it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's okay to feel that way. You just can't make the other person feel bad. And if you do, you should apologize, you know? But
have you ever had to kind of justify your own number? Or did it not get so high where the other person's like, has their number always been higher than yours?
Well, you know what? I think the justification happens when you like take an STD test, you know what I mean? And you're just like, okay, I'm clean, but how in the hell am I? You know what I mean? Like there's a very like I said, those like in the waking hours when you're like getting up from something that you probably shouldn't have done. That's when these like questions about what the fuck am I doing with my life, dude? Right. Like I just spent $60 on basically nothing, like just pumping myself full of drinks so I could kill the part of me that is disgusted by this behavior. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you know what, man? There are societies that don't. Like I remember like being in the Netherlands, and like the way they view sex over there is very like it's healthy. You know what I mean? Like people lose their virginity early, have a lot of sex. When you do have sex with someone, it doesn't become weird after. You know what I mean? And like you can still be friends with that person. And I have a hard time with that, like being friends with somebody after we've had sex.
Yeah, what does that do? You feel a little bit closer to them, and like, oh, maybe we should be more.
Yeah, or just like you've seen a side of them that you know is it feels weirdly formal, I guess, like to just like talk anymore. You know what I mean? Like if you've gone that far, how is you're almost like running backwards on a baseball diamond. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we already went the whole way one way, and now going this other way seems more difficult.
Yeah, handshake.
And I guess the closeness thing, and we'll wrap it up soon because I know you gotta we have a limited time. But now the sex thing, to me, one of the reasons why I'm just kind of not really going there is because it's fucking close.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that somebody would ever get so close with the perfect fucking stranger. Can you talk at all about your view on how some people can go there without drinks or substances with a fucking stranger?
Well,
is closeness not weird to some people? Because that's close, man. I mean, your face, your face, not only your genitals, but like your fucking face is just close to them. It's like if somebody came that close to you anywhere but like the CTA, the MTA or the subway, you'd just say, get the fuck away. I mean, you're a stranger. I met you 5 minutes ago. How are we so fucking close?
Well, I think there is. You've heard the term sex positivity, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just changing attitudes, man. And like also, sex nerds. I've heard of that. You know what I mean? People, there's just like this, almost, it's in vogue. You know what I mean? It's like cool.
But like, I mean, to you though, viscerally, being that close with a stranger, is it fucked up without substances?
I don't think so. I think it's fine. I can't say I've ever met someone night of with no substances involved and had sex with them.
That's just it. Yeah. Everybody's got substances, and that's why we see the casual sex that we hear so much about. That might not actually be true. There's been some studies about Tinder saying all Tinder did was it let the people who were having sex all the time anyway just find those people who were having sex all the time anyway. Like it's not really an explosion of casual sex. It's just it's much easier for those casual sex people to find casual sex.
Well, Tinder is, I've heard, this said before, and I think it's true. Tinder is like a reversion back before Match.com and stuff like that, because you're going off of that person's face, which is what you would do at a bar. You know what I mean? As opposed to, Christian Mingle or Match.com, where you're reading about them, trying to compare things. And then, you know what I mean? Which feels inauthentic in its own way, because it's like no one is gonna walk up to you at a bar and hand you a business card and be like, okay, well, let's try this on next Tuesday. You know what I mean? You're pulled in by but that's just something. I'm not a sober person, and I think sex can be its own substance. You know what I mean? Like, in the same way that people get fucked up off cocaine, you can get fucked up off on casual sex. You know what I mean?
So there's people out there who are getting their fix via casual sex.
Yeah. And I think it's we were talking about the differences in Me Too stories. I think it's more dangerous for women to do that than men. You know what I mean? Like, it's very. So I would be curious to hear a woman's perspective on this, because I never feel like I'm going to get like beaten up or robbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I've never like. We haven't mentioned this, but like prostitution is, I guess, the ultimate of what we're talking about. This kind of like this kind of aversion, and I've never done that. So what we're talking about is like not. It's tantamount to that. It's just like you're doing the absolute minimum to get to know someone, and you're having sex. Then having the most intimate experience possible. Wow. Yeah, and I can't fathom it, and it doesn't sound like you can either.
So there's two guys in the room, and 100% of them just aren't into the whole casual sex without substances, with perfect strangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't think I could do that.
Well, that's good. I mean, that makes me, the fact that 100% of people in this studio are not like that.
There are two.
Yeah, there are two. And meaning like maybe everybody's not like that, but you're going to be able to talk about this much more with your show coming up with Amber Rollo.
Yep.
And you guys will be where?
So we're going to be at the Creek in the Cave.
All right, for a whole week starting 26th.
Starting the 26th, yeah.
And we'll go through the 2nd of February already. Mm-hmm. And is that, what's the beginning of February? Is that, Valentine's Day is mid-February.
Valentine's Day is mid-February. So I'm glad. Are you
doing a show with her on Valentine's Day at the other place you do?
Yeah, no, I don't.
What bar is that? That's Bushwick Bar?
That is called Mad Tropical. Our next show there is the 16th. I don't know when this is dropping, but please come out and check it out.
Yeah, it should be before then.
Okay, great.
And so are you guys, is that a monthly show at?
Bi-monthly. So we do it every 2 weeks. It's always good. It's called Stoked. We have free pizza. So if you are hungry, or if you're hungry, want to laugh, or both, come through.
And then, so I almost think there's going to be a show close to Valentine's Day with Amber Rollo, right? Or do you guys share the bill every time, or do you guys kind of alternate
we alternate, and sometimes we host together, sometimes we don't. I really like that feeling of like riffing up top. It's kind of like what we're doing right now, but a little less planned. But you are just like trying to spin gold out of straw.
Yeah, I mean? And so you kind of are, because you have other comics on the show. You're kind of hosting and you're riffing between and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. And you're trying to go off of the and like another thing another reason I talk about sex so much on stage is like it is on people's minds. Couples come out to comedy shows. You know what I mean?
And you could alter their night with your jokes.
Yeah, and you see that all the time in crowd work. The comedians pointing at couples and being like, "Yo, you should have sex with each other." And
do you do that? Do you do crowd work?
I've never done that. I've not worked up the courage to ever try and be somebody's wingman from the stage, but I see it all the time. It's very pervasive, and I do feel like it is better than a movie to take your date to, because it's like this wholly interactive experience. You know what I mean? Where it could, you're right, like change the course of the whole night to go.
Well, because you don't riff on sex in the audience, we are much more likely to come to your show. So you'll be at the Creek or the Cave, or is it both?
Creek and the Cave.
Creek and the
both.
Cave.
We got the Creek and we got the Cave.
And the Cave. So you got both of those end of January, and also Mad Tropical, which will be mid-January.
Mid-January, yep. Okay. So multiple opportunities to see me. And then I'm also, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Davidson Boswell, I post my shows there as well.
It's a good follow. I think I've heard did you do the Joel Osteen tweet via your account? I thought I saw maybe one. I was like, that is fucking hilarious.
Well, the tickets are like, they go up into the thousands of dollars, but I was just saying that I wanted like an expensive seat because I don't want to go to hell.
Oh, dude. Oh, yeah. So check out the Joel Osteen show too. But Davidson Boswell is a must follow. I follow his account. So check him out, and then check out those shows. So thank you so much, Davidson.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
All right, you too.